Hello, everyone, and welcome to our latest online event here at the University of California, Merced. My name is Ricky Hill. I am your e-recruiter here at UC Merced. A big welcome to you this evening. We are so excited that you're joining us for yet again one of our Monday night events. Tonight's focus is on the UC admission application. We are here to help you with that, and it is kind of an Ask Me Anything, specifically though, not quite anything, but specifically on activities and awards and scholarships and programs. So we are here to answer any questions related to that specific area of the admission application. Before we get started, let me give you a couple of quick tips. If you need to adjust your audio settings, do that in the lower left corner of your screen. If you would like to adjust the size of your window, you can do that by clicking View Options in the upper portion of your screen. Lastly, and most importantly, you already see these slides that are rotating here behind us or to the side of our faces. This is how this event will go. We don't have a formal presentation for you tonight. You will see these same slides rotating, so feel free to keep your smartphone close by and do some screenshots for future reference. But most importantly, take full advantage of the Q&A button on your screen. That's the question and answer button where you can totally send us any question that you have. Like I said, ask me anything about activities and awards, scholarships, and programs. Send in those questions. We are fully staffed behind the scenes with our content experts as always. And we also have Ruben here with us as well. Having said that, I would love to hand this over to Ruben right now to kick off this great event. Ruben?
Thanks, Ricky. Welcome, everyone. Like Ricky said, this is all about getting to as many of your questions as possible. So with that, I think we'll go ahead and get started. Ricky, I'll ask myself the first question. First question is, can I ask essay questions or any other area of questions? And I'll just say you can answer them. If we get behind in questions, we may not get to them. We're going to focus on answering questions about the two areas that Ricky mentioned. So the activities and awards section and the scholarship and programs sections is what we're going to focus on. If we've got time to get to other areas, then we'll definitely get to those areas. But I do want to point out, I'm going to skip this slide ahead a little bit. There is a lot of other help available if we don't get to your question tonight. So first, I'll point out these last application chats that we're hosting starting tomorrow and then next Tuesday as well. So you can come to those. Those aren't connected to a topic. They're just kind of last minute, get whatever questions you have answered so you can submit your application. Very similar to maybe tonight, but again, kind of ask whatever you want. And you can view that Scan Me QR code to sign up for those events if you haven't signed up for them already. So again, if we don't get to your essay question tonight or whatever other questions you might have, definitely sign up for these sessions here. I will also point out, again, these will be rotating through the night, so you can grab the QR code whenever you need to. We do have a PIQ workshop that many people here tonight help put on. If you do need help writing your PIQs, that's a great resource. I would watch that webinar. Maybe someone in chat can confirm what it's about an hour long, something like that. So you probably want to make sure you get your popcorn and pop ready and sit down for a good movie night in. To watch that PIQ webinar. Maybe have your laptop handy as well so you can be working on them as you watch it. And then the other QR code on the right-hand side of the screen that will be flashing throughout the night is UC Santa Barbara does a great job kind of splitting up the application up into mini videos for you. So they're not there to answer your questions, but they do have videos that you can go and watch about any section of the application for you. So view their playlist as well. And watch their videos if we don't get to it. So yes, you can ask essay questions, but if we get behind in questions, we may not necessarily get to it tonight. Let's rock and roll, Ricky.
All right. Well, the first question coming in, let's take a look what we have here. So if I'm a caretaker for a sibling, which category does that go under for activities?
Probably one of the most common answers you'll hear from me tonight is it's your story you're telling us. So it depends on where you see that fit. The only restrictions I'd maybe put on it is if you're putting it in a job area, so work experience, you're most likely getting paid for that position. So if it is a paid babysitter experience, so maybe you're babysitting your nieces and nephews and your aunts and uncles are paying you, and you want to put that under work experience, then again, your choice. But work experience should have some sort of compensation associated with it. So you'll see that, we'll ask what your job responsibilities are. What does your company do and where do you work and such like that. So fill that out, and then we will ask you kind of how many hours per week that you work. So again, compensation kind of connected to work experience. In terms of volunteer work, again, you're not getting paid for it. So there's that. But again, your story, not really any particular place it has to go. If you want to put it in as an extracurricular activity, you can choose to do that. If you want to put it in as volunteer or community service work, if you're not getting paid for it, again, you can choose to do that. Probably the best place for watching siblings is probably more the educational activity, I would say, though. Not that there's a wrong or right place to put it, but that may be one of the better ones to put it in.
Very good. Thanks, Ruben. And let's see our next question. So does it matter what order they input those activities and awards? Does the actual order that they place them in the application, does that make a difference?
Oh, good question. I remember this one coming up quite a bit last year and such. No, doesn't matter. In fact, the order that you put it in, I can't necessarily guarantee that it'll be the order we see it in on our side. Some campuses review tools may put it alphabetical. Others may put it in chronological order if there's a time associated with it. So I would not focus on the order at all. Just put them in as you think about them or how you've written them down or whatever. So just the important thing is just get them in. And sometimes I don't even know what order we'll see them in on our campus. So yeah, don't focus on order at all.
Great. So this question's coming in from a student who has spoken to an advisor at another UC campus, and they were recommended to write their activities and awards like a resume, but other recruiters have recommended to them that they write the activities in more of a narrative voice. Do we have any different advice to share, or one way or the other that might be better?
I don't know if one way is better than the other. I would just say make sure you're clear on kind of what the activity is. Stay away from abbreviations that we might not know. I would just stick with kind of what we say about PIQs. Don't be too creative with the response. Just describe it, right? If it says, what did you do? Then answer that question. What did you do? Again, stay away from vagueness. Stay away from abbreviations we might not understand. Be clear in your timelines and your responsibilities and all that. So it's crystal clear what you've done. In this case, as an extracurricular activity that you've done and such like that. So yeah, I don't know. I think it's up to your writing style and all that. Again, just make sure that when you read it or you have like, I'm going to call it a guest read it before you submit it, that they understand what you mean when you talk about that activity or award or whatever activity it might be.
And is there any specific importance on activities and awards compared to the PIQs? Do we weigh one section of the application more than another?
They're not really weighed more than the other. It's just information you're providing to us, right? So again, you're telling us your story, whether you want to tell us your story in the activities and awards section, which may be more resume-like, right? When did you do it? What did you do, et cetera, and a brief description of what you've done. Then you can definitely do that. If you want to spend a little bit more time on the activity and really explain in depth what you've done, and you want to answer it in one of the PIQs, then you can choose to do that also. If you're running out of space and you don't know, it only allows you to put 20 activities and awards in this section. So if you've put 20 in, and then you decide to write about one in your PIQ and you don't have room for anything else, then I think it's perfectly fine just to include it in the PIQ and add something else to the activities and awards. If you have space in both, then put it in both, that's fine. Your applications never split up at any of the campuses. So just note that whatever you put in one section, we'll see it even if it's in a totally another section. So the same reader is reading your full application. So no matter where you'll put it, we'll see it.
Great information. The next question they're asking, should they just be listing, let's say, for example, in a bulleted list, just listing the activities, or should they add a bit more detail, including things such as what they actually learned or things that they got out of that activity?
It's kind of hard to just list the activities in a bullet point. This isn't an open text field. So if you haven't quite gotten to it yet, you can see here in activities and awards, the first step you have to do is kind of select what type of activity award it is, right? And we kind of give a brief explanation of all the different types that we have. So honor or award, educational preparation program, extracurricular activity, other coursework, volunteer community service, and work experience. For the ones that have a little information pop up, you can hover over the eye icon and it'll give you a little bit more information about it, about that topic. So first you have to select what category you're talking about, right? So if you're talking about honors and awards, we're then going to ask specific questions about that honors and award. If you're talking about in the description area, if it's better to bullet point or write sentences, again, as long as you're answering the question and you're making it clear, kind of in this case, what the eligibility requirements are. If it's, if you think it's better to list it bullet point, right? Like option, requirement 1, bullet point requirement 2, etc. I can type a 2 when I say 2. Then it's really up to you. Again, as long as we're getting the information and it's clear to us what the requirements are by the time you're done, then there's no right or wrong way to do it. Just note though, again, that I can't guarantee that all the systems we use on our side are gonna maybe display the bullet points in the same way that you kind of maybe wanted it. So, again, I don't know what all the campuses use, but some campuses programs may, they may ignore kind of the formatting that you do with the new lines or the enters, whatever you want to call it. So even though you're typing it like this, they may just see it as a long line like this. So keep that in mind. If it gets too confusing, you think that way, then it may be better just to write a sentence out or something like that. So again, either way you think gets the information across, but do note that any special formatting that you do, we can't guarantee comes over on the view side that the readers see it, depending on what system they're using and such like that.
Very good. And then when they mention some type of organization, I know that we always kind of reinforce the fact or the preference that they don't just list acronyms in case we don't know what that particular acronym means, but should they also give a description of what that organization does?
Yeah, in fact, I think you'll be required to. Let me pull up extracurricular activities real quick. Maybe it's work experience. So in some cases, you'll be required to describe it. So again, for work experience, you need to describe the company where you work and kind of what they do and such. For extracurricular activities, you need to explain what did you do in this project, not necessarily what the organization is doing, but kind of what did you do within it. So yeah, a lot of times you will kind of be required to give us more information than just the title of the activity. And you want to be clear to answer the question that we're asking. So again, what did you do? Not what did the organization do, but what did you do in this activity, sort of thing. If it's an educational preparation program you're writing about, then we will ask you to describe the program. So in that case, we're asking you to clearly describe the program and kind of what it's done for you. But then we do say, focus on your experience in the program and such. So maybe not just a dictionary definition of the program, but again, maybe a little bit more about what the program meant to you and your description of the program, sort of thing. So definitely answer the question on what we ask in each of the different types of different activities that you have. And these questions will change depending on the activity that you choose.
Very good. Now, is there a limit to the number of activities and awards that someone lists? And then the flip side to that, should they list more than one if they only have one that they feel really qualifies there? I mean, should they try to list as many as possible?
I would say definitely list as many as you have. So when you start this section, before you add anything, I'm going to try and make this a little bit bigger for you, or maybe it's just because that monitor that you see me looking at is so far away, or I'm just getting old and need new glasses. But it reminds you right here that you can choose up to 20 total activities and awards within those different categories that we were just looking at. So not 20 work experiences and 20 volunteer work, 20 total. So you can choose to add 20, honors and awards, but then you won't be able to enter any work experience. So 20 total amongst all these categories is the maximum. Now, if you only have one activity, that's fine. We don't expect students to have, some students may have to focus on a lot of, family work or something like that. So the only thing they really have is the one activity they can fit in. Maybe they're commuting to school a long distance. So, they can only stay after school half an hour to do one activity, and they have to, commute back home. Each student's different, and we understand that. So if all you have is the one activity, put that. The other thing I'll add is don't make up activities, right? There is a selection process where students are selected to verify the activities that they put in here. Not everyone is chosen. It's random, but students are chosen to verify the activities that they've put in this section. So if you say you work, 20 hours a week, you may be selected randomly to say, okay, well, we need a letter from your boss to verify that you work these 20 hours a week. So I wouldn't make things up, because you do have to make sure what you put in here, you can verify by getting a letter from your boss or a letter from your advisor at school, or someone that you work with or work with the organization, or some sort of proof that you won the award. So I wouldn't be making too much stuff up. That being said, I'm sure this question will come up, so we'll probably answer it quite a bit also, is especially when you're listing, like, let's say volunteer work, one of the questions you get to is this estimate, right? And that's exactly what it is, just an estimate. We don't expect you to get the hours correct, but in that verification process I was talking about, if you say you volunteer 40 hours a week from this and you do it 52 hours a week, but the person that is verifying this for you or writing to us saying, yes, you're involved, can't prove that you worked full time all year round in this project, they only say that you worked 10 hours a week or spent 10 hours a week on this volunteer project, then that's going to become an issue. But the hours don't need to be spot on exact. They just need to be an estimate that's close to what you do. And if you did, 10 hours for 4 weeks and then 2 hours for 2 weeks, you can kind of, merge those together to come up with an hour amount that you think is appropriate for what you've done. So try your best to estimate these hours and get them close to what, again, someone would verify that you've actually done with that program. But they don't have to be exact.
Very good. Now, this next question that I have on the list here, it kind of touches on what you just said. So let's go ahead and address it right now. Is there any major mistake that people should be wary of when they are completing this section? And so you kind of touched on one, that's an estimate, but it should be close. We don't want to see something so out in left field, right? Is there any other mistake or kind of snag that might happen that you've experienced?
Ooh, I'll open this to the chatters if they want to chat and add anything they might want to add for this. I guess I'll just add the biggest mistake I see is assuming we know what you're talking about, right? So not being that crystal clear. And I'll give you an example. I think there's a difference between, I won an award, right? Versus, I won first place. Right? Or third place, like what level did you win, right? Or I won this award and not telling us like how selective it was, right? Like was it national? Was it out of thousands and thousands of people, or were there only 2 entries and you won first place, sort of thing. So, again, we don't know your community. We don't know what you might have done or what that award may not even be. So again, the more information you can give us about how selective it is, or what you've done to earn that, I think the better. So being too vague, I would say, is the most common issue I see students run into, or we're like, oh, that sounds really awesome, but we don't have enough information to really gather the extent of that awesomeness for you all. So be clear, again, stay away from acronyms, and you just want to be as again, give us as much information about it as possible, right? How many people did you compete with if it's an award? If it's a club and activity, right? Like what did you really do for it? You may not be president, and that's fine, but were you a chair, or did you chair multiple events? Or did you just show up to meetings and participate, and lead new members in and introduce them to the organization? So again, that vagueness of, I'm just a member. Like, okay, but what did you really do for that organization, right? I would say that's the biggest common mistake I would say students do.
Thanks, Ruben. And that timing of that question and your response is spot on with another question that just came through asking or referencing that when you mention something and how to avoid being vague, could you give an example? And I think you just did a great job in really hitting that question right on the head. So hopefully that listener, that did answer your question. If not, go ahead and try and send another one in. If you had something even more detailed, then we can get to that one next. All right, next question. Is it recommended to include the Dean's List as an honor, or does your GPA reflect that you would be on the Dean's List at your college?
I'll answer it this way. If you have if you're at that 20 max and you have nothing else or you have other things to list, I would say the Dean's List and other academic awards that you've gotten that are just kind of GPA based or perfect attendance sort of things. Those are the first that I would cut out to add other things. You're absolutely right. We will see your academics in the academic section. So we know what courses you've taken. We know what grades you've received. If you're a straight A student or, you have lots of A's and B's, you're at that 3.5 or higher mark. We already see that. So me personally, and this is where you may get different advice depending on which campus and which advisors you talk to. So I don't want to say not list it. What I'll say is if you have other things to list instead of that, I would say those academic awards that your school just gives for being a certain GPA or whatnot would be the first that I would not include to include other activities that you have. Same thing like perfect attendance. Not to say it too harshly, but we expect our students to have perfect attendance. We expect you to go to class and show up. So that perfect attendance award really doesn't give us a lot of information. What do we call like personality trait type things like the perfect attendance and such like that are not really qualities that we can review in our application. Again, I don't think this has come up yet, so I'll try and pull it up. But I'm going to pull up the admission selection criteria again, just as another way to kind of show this. Did this pull up freshman or transfer? Transfer students in the room, you can also find this for transfer students. There's less criteria for transfer students, just different criteria. So for first year students out there, we have 13 criteria we look at when reviewing your application. And that sort of perfect attendance type of behavioral stuff typically is not one of the criteria that we can look at when reviewing applications. So when you are putting in activities and awards and all these other things, you do maybe want to look at this list and see if it is something that we can consider when reviewing your application. GPA is definitely one of the things we can consider, but like you said in your question, we already see your GPA. So we're already taking that into consideration. An award based just on GPA that everybody gets, right? Anyone who's 3.5 can get it, or whatever GPA it is, doesn't add a lot of additional information to your application that we don't already have. So again, as you're putting these in, look at these criteria and see if it's really a factor that we can consider in reviewing your application. And transfer students, you have a similar list that you can find by searching as well. So that was just a quick Google search I did, UC selection criteria, and it came up. So I hope that answers your question.
Great, thanks, Ruben. How should our students list, or should they list, any type of internship that is unpaid?
Ooh. Again, I don't think there's a right or wrong answer on this one. You could go extracurricular activity, I would say, is the most common place that I see those sort of unpaid internships. If it was a highly selective unpaid internship, so you had to go through an interview process and there were hundreds of applicants and you kind of had to win a space on it. I've sometimes seen those in honors and awards, right? It was an honor to be selected for that very selective unpaid internship. So I've seen some of it in there. Again, volunteer work may not be the best place for it, but since it is unpaid and you absolutely need to, you might be able to fit it into volunteer work as well. But I would say probably the best places for it is that extracurricular activity area. After that, again, if it was very selective, then maybe honors and awards. And then maybe after that, volunteer and community service. But again, no right or wrong answer, kind of as long as we're getting that information, we know that it's unpaid. So you probably want to include that in the description that you're writing for the event, that it's unpaid. And most importantly, what you're doing in that internship. So how selective was it? And then what are you doing? And definitely let us know that it's not a paid position.
Fantastic. And can we move on to the scholarship section? We've had several questions come in and some folks are just a little bit confused on how to complete that area.
Yeah. The scholarship area, I mean, I think it's relatively easy, but I'm not the one reading through all the lots of different scholarships. I will say this much. The scholarship area will change. So it is dynamic based on the campuses that you're choosing to apply for. So I have one campus selected right now. So you will see on my screen the options for that campus that I've selected. If you have a different campus selected, you most likely will see different options. So I want to warn you about that first, because you might be like, oh my gosh, I don't have this business major one and I'm a business major. The campuses that you've selected may not have that option. They likely do, but they may not. So dynamic, it will change based on the campuses you select. After that, you just kind of need to go through the list. We have these different areas, academic major. So you can open that up and see if the campuses you're applying to have a scholarship available to the academic major that you're interested in, you're applying to. So let's say you're interested in a music major, you can definitely, select the music option. Affiliation with group, program, or organization. Again, read these and see if they apply to you. Maybe you are in a track and field program. Maybe this would be more for a transfer student since it's a college track program, or I'm thinking of track and field. This is like a college going initiative type program. So you have college track at your high school. Maybe you can select that one. If you weren't in the college track program, then you wouldn't be able to select that option. So again, some of these are very specific, right? The Oakland Promise program, that's a very specific program that probably someone in the LA area isn't participating in. So really go through all the scholarships that are on your application based on the campuses you've selected. And I would just select every single one that applies to you up until it tells you you can't select anymore, which you can select quite a few different scholarships. I know it says a number. It may be a triple digit number that you can select up to, a very low triple digit number. But you can select quite a different of these scholarships that apply to you. So I wouldn't be afraid to just click them. And these are probably some of the easiest scholarships you can apply for, because all you got to do is click them. Maybe you have to read them and understand what they're doing. So again, if you're not blind, maybe don't apply for the blind scholarship. But yeah, if it applies to you, click it. And if you're selected, you will find out most likely when you get your scholarship and financial aid award letter after you're admitted.
Fantastic. Thank you so much, Ruben. And we are hitting about that halfway mark. So I'd like to take just a little pause in the action and just hit pause on our questions. That doesn't mean that you have to stop sending those in, because we are still fully staffed behind the scenes. And this will be a really quick break just for me to share some fun facts about UC Merced. So we are the newest campus in the UC system, if you weren't already aware. But also, did you know that we are blazing trails and climbing the charts? We are so excited about all of our rankings that we come in high points every single year. And the UC Merced focus on undergraduate research offers a truly unique experience. Speaking of those rankings, one I'd like to share is that we were ranked number 11 among public universities and number 1 in the UC for student participation in undergraduate research and creative projects. So number 11 among public universities and number 1 in another ranking. We have so many of those. We have a website we'd love to share with you, which is ucmerced.edu/accolades, and we will drop that in the chat for you so you can take a little look at that on your own. I also want to share that when we talk about being a green campus, we are really walking the talk. We were recognized as number 1 yet again as the greenest college campus in the United States and the number 1 on the list of Sustainable College Index. like I said, we're so proud of the rankings. We work hard for these every single year. So we're always anticipating where we're going to fall when they come out. And we're always so excited and proud of our accomplishments. Once again, that website is ucmerced.edu/accolades. So we hope that you do take a moment and take a look at that site just to see what else we have. And Ruben, of course, he's fantastic behind the scenes right now. And he's showing you on the screen what that website looks like so you can see the long list of other accolades and rankings that we do have there. All right, let's hop back over to our questions. So if I have signed up to take an hour of extracurricular course in January of 2023, could I still list that and clarify when I'll be taking it and say that it's in the 12th grade, or is it too late for me to go ahead and list that now?
Yeah, I'm going to take a break real quick before I answer that, Ricky, and go back to the scholarship question because I forgot to mention something important.
Oh, sure.
Some campuses may have scholarships that you select that have follow-up things to it, like maybe an interview or letters of recommendation. So you want to be watching your email for any of those type of invitations as well. So just keep that in mind. Some scholarships you choose may follow up with you and ask for additional information for not all of them, but very few of them I say might do that. So keep an eye on your email, not only for that reason, but for lots of reasons. But maybe especially that one. Okay. Question, something going on in the 12th grade that you're planning on doing, but haven't quite finished it yet. Did I get the gist of that correct?
Yeah, so they're doing an extracurricular course in January of 23. So they're wondering now if they should be listing it.
Okay. So I'm gonna throw some assumptions in here, and if I'm assuming wrong, I apologize. But I'm going to guess you're going to be putting this kind of more in that non A through G sort of, other coursework area sort of thing. If you're putting it as another coursework and it's planned, typically we don't like planned things, especially in this area. We want them kind of complete because, again, if your plans change in January and you're not able to take that course, but then you're selected for verification and you can't prove that you've completed that course, then that might become a slight issue. I'm part of that verification committee, so I'm pretty sure if you just say I was unable to take that course and you get a letter from the teacher, whoever it is, saying you can't take it, that would meet that requirement of, submitting that. Most of the time we want things complete. With other courses, since you plan on taking it, then I would say in this rare instance, it's probably okay to include something that you haven't yet completed. We already are asking you for which courses you plan on taking the spring semester, and you haven't taken those yet. So for other coursework, I'm going to apply that same logic, right? This is what your plan is. These are the courses you plan on taking. And it explains for that spring semester kind of where you're spending additional time outside those A through G academic courses. So I would say in the case of coursework, definitely include any courses that you plan on taking for the spring semester, even though they're not done yet. Outside of coursework, if you hope to be elected president for a club or organization for the spring semester, I wouldn't include things like that, right? You've got to be voted into it. You're not sure which way the vote's going to go. That's a little bit more loose in terms of whether it will actually be completed, or awards that you might win, right? You don't know if you're going to win it or not. For things like that, we definitely want to make sure you're putting things in that are accomplished by the time you submit your application, and not really it might happen sort of thing.
Very good. And moving on to the next question. Are they allowed to have some level of overlap in some of these? So if something maybe falls between a couple of different categories, or should they just list it in one? So the person's really asking, can there be overlap between extracurriculars and essays?
Okay.
Or should it just pick one spot where has the biggest impact?
Yeah, again, really up to you. I like to say it's your story. Tell it how you would like to tell it, right? I think we can think of lots of different examples of books that we've read where, they may have a flashback to something that we've seen before, or, something that they think is important enough to let us know again that enhances the story. And this application is just a copy of your story that you're telling us, right? So if you want to do that flashback, something that's critically important to you, and you want to talk about it again in your PIQs, even though you've mentioned it in this activity section already, then that's your choice to do so. I'll just say again, though, if you have lots of activities and you're running out of space to put everything in, because you do have limited space in both the PIQs and the activities and awards, and you need that extra space to fit something else in, then something that you've talked about in the PIQs, I would say, maybe one of the first things that you remove so you can add that additional activity. Because even though I just said it's perfectly okay to, do that refresher and talk about things multiple times, we don't necessarily need you to either, right? Listing in the PIQs and giving us the information there is perfectly fine. Adding it in second place, unless you're giving more information that you haven't provided before, we'll see it either place you put it. So really your choice, no real wrong answer there, as long as we get the information that you think is critical for us to know about.
Great, thanks, Ruben. And a little bit of a follow-up. Does this mean that the same person will be reviewing all sections of their application? As you said, if we see it in one place, no real reason to post it somewhere else?
Correct. There may be multiple people reading your application, but each person that reads it will be reviewing everything that you've submitted. So yeah, don't think about one person's reading your PIQs that you submitted, another reading these activities, and another person reading your grades and courses. Everyone who reads your app is reading it from beginning to end.
Very good. Important information to know. All right. The next question is coming in from a transfer applicant. So welcome to our transfer population tonight. Can we talk a little bit about activities that they did in high school, or is there too big of a time lapse between high school and becoming a transfer student?
Ooh, good question. I'm going to say it depends on the transfer student. We have some transfer students who maybe felt they selected the wrong four-year university to attend, and they're wanting to transfer to UC Merced, when they're in their first semester at college. So it's going to depend on the transfer student. For this answer, I'm going to focus more on your traditional junior level transfer student who maybe has done 2 or more years at the community college. Sorry, I'm trying to find my transfer app. I think this is it, to bring that up on the screen for you all. Transfer apps, just to let you know, they don't have a whole lot of difference in this section that I've been able to discern. So same types of questions, same types of activities and all of that you can choose from. Oh, I got logged out, of course. I would say for transfer students, it's preferred to focus on activities that you've done while in college, maybe after you've graduated high school. If you're talking about your traditional junior level transfer student. So more recent events will tie in better to your transfer application. Is it required? No, it's not required. If you have things that you want to talk about that have shaped you or shaped what you want to study and they started in high school, then feel free to talk about those. But definitely recommended to talk about things or focus or start with things that you've done while in college first, and make sure that those activities and experiences get in. And then only if you have room and you feel they're connected to who you are today, then focus on, or maybe not focus, include those high school activities as well.
Fantastic. Next question. Are hobbies like art and writing and video gaming, are those things worth adding as an extracurricular?
Ooh, good question. Again, your story, you can choose what you want to tell us in your application. So if those are important activities for you and you spend time on them outside the classroom, then I would definitely include them. In terms of like honors and awards and such like that, if you're going to include it as an award, right? Like I'm the best video game player ever. Then, maybe you want to make sure that you're being selected for that award, right? You were in some sort of competition or something like that. So to kind of get chosen for that award or show your talent for that award. If it's just kind of an extracurricular activity and maybe you're part of a video game club or anything like that, or you just enjoy it, then you can include it. Yeah, your story, include what you want to tell us, what you think is important for you, and we'll definitely include it in our review and use it to kind of see where you're spending your time outside of the classroom and such like that.
Perfect. Next question. Can I or should I mention the academic and club cords that I'm about to receive during graduation? Should they put that in the awards section?
Good question. I think it's important, again, if you have space, to include it in your application. Again, I would focus on what you needed to do to earn those cords. Again, if they're mostly academic based, though, like everyone who has a 3.7 or higher when they graduate gets that. Again, if you are running out of space and you need to mention something else, that may be one of the first things maybe that you don't include to make space for those other things. Because again, we're going to see your GPA from the academic section of your application. But if you have the space, then I think it's definitely nice to let us know that you're at that level and participation in those organizations to earn any of those cords and stuff. So really depends what's behind those, on whether you can remove them to make space for other things if you run out of space or not. If there's plenty of space, then yeah, feel free to include them.
Perfect. And what is the most effective way to respond to the EOP scholarship question?
Oh yeah, good question. I was thinking that would come up. Let me pull it up so everyone can see what we're doing. I lost my freshman application though. Where did it go? Right there. Okay. So yeah, in the scholarship and programs area, you'll see support programs. These are more the support programs that the University of California offers for students. And the main one we have is EOP. I will point out that at the University of California level, EOP is more of a support program in terms of additional advising, additional tutoring, and such like that. It's not really a financial support program in terms of offering scholarships or grants or extra money to students. I would read the information, figure out what the EOP program is about. And then if you check that box, it will ask why you're interested in EOP. So again, answer the question. You may want to focus on how you might benefit from the programs that our program offers to you. And I stress that our program, the UC's program, because I think a lot of the responses we get just simply mention, I want to be an EOP because, you know, I need the financial assistance to go to college. And again, our EOP program at the University of California isn't heavily financial based. So if your only reason is you need financial support, then that may not be the best answer, because our program is not about financial support, right? So definitely read what the program's about and then tie this into how you think the program can help you succeed in college.
Very good. Now the next question. I'm not entirely sure that I will be continuing an activity into the second semester. Should I still list it even though I'm not sure, or that I'll be able to participate in the second term? So should they list that?
Yeah, chatters, feel free to put in the chat if you have maybe a different information to provide. But yeah, the RUC application, you know, it's not getting to the fine details, right? So the main thing we ask, I'm trying to get to it while still being able to talk, and I'm not doing a very good job. You know, the main thing we ask is kind of the year that you participated in it. So if you participated in the 12th grade, the fall semester, then I think clicking 12th grade is accurate, right? One thing you might want to do is shorten the weeks per year, right? You didn't do it the full year, right? I was trying to think of earlier how long an academic year is. But yeah, I think I've been at a school too long. So I'm thinking like 9 weeks per semester. No, 16 weeks per semester. I went to quarter. So, you know, what, 32 weeks-ish about. So if you only did it for half the year, then, you know, maybe, 16 weeks. Or if you only did it for 4 months out of the year, well, that would be 16 weeks. Boy, okay, it's time for bed. So yeah, you might want to adjust the weeks per year that you did it for the senior year. If you did it multiple years, you know, again, kind of make your best estimation on what makes sense to you, right? You did it the full academic year for the first 2 years, but only half of this year. You know, make your best guess on what makes sense to you there. You can also include in the description of what you did, right? Like, due to this reason, I was able to continue this the second semester of my senior year, right? Maybe the courses you were taking or the activities that you were doing you had to cut something out, right? Just to sleep and stay healthy, you had to cut something out. So you can also explain that quickly kind of in the what did you do section. I wouldn't spend a lot of time on it because this is more about what you've done in the organization. But you could make it clear that due to other conflicting priorities, you had to drop this after fall semester, senior year or something. Are just some ideas that I have.
Perfect. And can we put scholarships and the dean's list under whatever they've won under the awards and activities section? Is that the right place?
Yeah, if it's anything that's competitive and you were selected based on your talent or your experiences or whatever, then that's definitely an award for you. So yeah. Yeah. Again, like we've talked about before, dean's list, if it's just based on your GPA, and anyone who gets dean's list has a 3 whatever GPA or 4.0 GPA, whatever it is for your school, and you need the space for something else, those type of awards may be some of the first that you not include, so you can include other information. Because we already see that based on your academic information you provided. We already know your great and awesome GPA. So things like dean's list, I wouldn't say are super additive to your application. Again, because we see that in another place already. Kind of gets back to that question of, should I include it in this list if I included my PIQ, right? If we're going to see it in your PIQs, you don't necessarily have to add it here. Same things with dean list type things, right? If it's just anyone with this GPA gets it, we see your awesome GPA already. You don't necessarily have to add it here, but that doesn't mean that you can't.
Very good. And then what are the main things that people should be highlighting in the limited space? Now, I've noticed when you're scrolling, it does say 350 characters. Is that the same amount for all of these areas?
I think so. Depending on the question that it's asking, I think the character limitation will be very similar, even though the question itself might change. So what did you do for extracurricular activities? Honors and awards is going to be 250. So already we see a difference. And this is based on the eligibility requirement. So again, what did you do or have to do to earn the award? And then when we get down here to the, what did you do to achieve it? There's more space. So we see back to 350 words. So depending on the question, that the characters will change. We can go to, I don't know, one more work experience, Ricky. Where you're explaining the company you work for is again back down to 250 characters, not even words, characters. I wasn't paying attention if it was characters or words on the other ones. And then what are your job responsibilities? We're back up to 350 characters. So it will change depending on the question that you have. And again, characters, not words. So, if I type, now I can't think of words, Ricky.
Important. That's a
right. So
word. It's an easy word. It's a common word. Important.
Words are easier. So again, I use 5 characters there. A space will count as a character. A period will count as a character. So it's not the whole words in this case. It is characters for these sections. So yeah, not a lot of space. You really need to work on kind of packing as much information as you can to provide to us, but still being clear on what you're talking about. And this is why you may also choose to write about something in your PIQs where you have 350 words to write about them as opposed to characters, because that event is so important to you. You just can't fit it into this space. So you can choose to write about in your PIQs in that instance, or again, you may utilize both spaces, right? You say something in this space and you continue that thought in the PIQs to expand on what you've written here. That works too.
Perfect. So definitely budget your space, recognize if it's 350 in characters or words, it's a huge difference. And then just kind of a question of my own that I know I see a lot and would be important to touch on here. Do you recommend that students go directly into the application and just start writing free form, or should they kind of look at the questions, write something in a Word document that can be saved, they can come back to it, copy, paste it in? Is there a best way to do that based on things timing out? Is that an issue?
Yeah, you definitely can time out in this application. Maybe Paul can remind me in chat what time that is. I don't recall how many minutes you have before you time out. I will say this much. I think for PIQs, it's critical to write them outside the system in a Word document or whatever. You want to, focus on your grammar and all that. And you want to spend a lot of time on them. For these, they're a lot shorter. Again, 350 characters per word. So you're going to run a space really quickly. Unless you start typing something, and then you walk away and go have dinner. Like I think it's most likely going to be pretty challenging to time out when you're working on these, because you have to hit, every time you hit save and continue, you kind of refresh that timer. So, you're spending 240 characters to explain this and 350 characters to answer this question. And then, you click the boxes and then you hit save. I'm not sure, I've ran into a lot of students getting frustrated because they ran out of time filling out this quick description of an event. Whereas again, the PIQs, they're more lengthy. You want to spend more time editing them. Not saying you don't want to edit these too. You want to edit these also, but you can hit save and then come back and do that. So may not be as critical, but also you could do it. If you're worried about timing out and such, you can definitely write your responses somewhere else and then come back and copy and paste them in. As long as that program makes clear what the character count is, a little bit easier for you. There's that. So you do time out. I really forget what the timeout time is on this. But you do time out if you don't switch sections or hit the save and continue within a certain amount of time. You saw me time out on my transfer app. So I was timed out on my transfer app because that sat for 40 minutes without me working in it. So you can time out. And if anything you work on before you hit the save and continue button, you would lose. So if you're worried about losing these 350 words, then you may want to copy them into another document and work on them there and then come and paste them in.
Perfect. Next question. Should I add to my application that I am an ELC applicant? Maybe we can explain what ELC is, and then should they include that?
Sure. For students attending California high schools, if the California school participates in it, the top 9% of their graduating high school seniors would be considered eligible via the local context for the University of California. And you can do a quick Google search, UC ELC program, to kind of read about the requirements for that and such. There are certain courses you need to have taken by a certain time and everything else to qualify for it as well. Should you include it in your application? No. Biggest reason why is, even though you may think you're the top 9% of students at your high school, you don't know your ELC yet. You think, oh, but I got a letter in September. The letter in September was letting you know that you're the top student at your school, one of the top students at your school, and we think you're highly qualified for the University of California, but that was not selecting you for ELC, unfortunately. You can determine if you're ELC only after you submit the UC application. You log back into the application and check your application status, and you should see a notice saying that you are selected for the ELC program. It also will do it for the statewide program if you're eligible via the statewide program. When you check your application status after you submit it, that's when you're notified of those two statuses. So not necessary to include it before you submit it, because again, you aren't selected for ELC before you submit your application.
Very good. Next question. If there is an award or recognition that we are on track to receive, but we haven't quite yet received it, should they still include that?
Oh, good question. My advice is not to include it. If you don't have it by the time you submit your application, I would not include it. We talked earlier about the difference with the courses you plan on taking, as maybe in other coursework type thing. But for honors and awards and activities that you're hoping to get or hoping to accomplish, I would not include them. As awesome as that award might be, if you don't have it yet, I would not include it. It may be something that you talk about in your PIQs of the experience that you're going through and the work that you've done to prepare for this. But I wouldn't list it as something you've received already if you haven't yet received it.
Very good. Thanks so much, Ruben. I know we are getting close to the end here. I do want to take a quick pause just to let everyone know we are doing the best we can to get to all those questions. If you do have something last minute that you haven't yet asked, go ahead and squeeze that in and we'll see what we can get back to. And also, I do want to just take a brief moment and just hit pause for just a second to share a little bit more information about UC Merced. Specifically for this little break, I'd like to talk a little bit more about our majors here. And do you have any idea what sets the UC Merced majors apart from all of the other universities? I can tell you, it is our interdisciplinary nature. It allows you to gain a diverse skill set and experience that empowers you to graduate with a wide breadth of knowledge that you can apply to a variety of careers. As a growing university, our programs continue to expand and add new areas of specialization. We are so excited today to let you know, in case you haven't yet heard, we have 2 brand new majors. Those are available to our first-year students coming in the fall of 2023, and those 2 are electrical engineering and writing studies. While you're looking at those and perusing other majors and minors that we have, you will also have an opportunity to find the online career finder tool. Very helpful in helping you kind of locate where you want to go in life and what career and what major will work best for you. If you'd like more information about this, please visit ucmerced.edu and click on majors and minors so that you can learn a little bit more. All right, let's hop back into these questions and see how many more we can get in here. The next question.
Ricky, can I go off script for a second?
Of course, I love it.
And ask my own question. Okay, I'm not really going to ask a question. I see a lot of questions of where's the best place to put this, or is this really an activity and award? And I think we've answered quite a few of those already tonight. So I just kind of wanted to stress for all these questions that we're probably not going to get to, there's no right or wrong place to put something. It's what you think makes sense. So if you think it's a volunteer activity, then put it in volunteer activity. If you think it's an honors and award, then put it in honors and awards. Again, we are not grading these. We are not taking away points when we think it's not an honor award. That's not an honor award, like minus point. We're not doing that. We're reading information, right? So as long as maybe what I would do is pull up each one of these separately. I'm going to shrink this. We can see a little bit more, pull up volunteer work and see which questions it asks, right? And see if those questions allow you to tell us enough information about your activity, right? Pull up honors and awards and see if those questions are better. The questions will change that we ask per activity. So that's the only thing I would say is there's no right or wrong place to put something as long as you can get the information you want to tell us in those spaces that we provide for you to respond to. So if you think it's volunteer work, put it as volunteer work. We're going to read the information and just collect it and include it in your application read, no matter where you put it.
Very good. And as I'm scrolling through these questions, I think that explanation hits a lot of them. So that's fantastic. A really great way to start to wrap up our event tonight, as we do only have about a minute left. Let's go ahead and see. I know we've got at least one more here. So if I volunteered in many different events for a particular club, should I describe all of those or generalize them, maybe pick out the top few?
Oh yeah, really, really good question. Because yeah, it really comes down to space conservation, I think. I don't know how space is going to have a conversation, but one of these days we'll figure it out. Okay. So yeah, again, that goes back to kind of how you feel is the best way to get us the information. Some applicants may have space to list all the different activities separately and talk about them. Some applicants may just have to kind of squeeze it into one general, this is what I've done, and kind of list as many things as they can fit in that character spacing of all the things they've done. So really up to you and the space that you have available to you and how you think is best to get us the information. Again, no right or wrong way to do it. Listing them out separately may allow you to provide more information about each one of them, but it takes up more space, right? So you may have to, again, consolidate them into one general thing and kind of fit as much information in the description as you can to let us know about that general thing. So really up to you and how you want to put that chapter of your story together.
Very good. Thank you so much, Ruben. And as we are really straight up at the top of this hour, I will give you just a quick moment. I know there's always something that we maybe didn't touch on. If you have any last minute couple of words before we wrap.
Ooh, I think I said them in that one thing, so I'll just reiterate. In the activities and awards section, especially, this is where you get to start tailoring that story that you want to tell the person reading your application. And again, they're going to read your whole application. So combine it with your academic history stuff, your PIQs, and everything else that we're asking you on the application. They're going to see it, except for the pieces that say it's for statistical purposes only. Those ones they won't see. But this is where you really start tailoring that story that you want to tell us. And your story is going to be different than your friend's story and down the road. So really spend time on it and figure out the best way to write that story.
Perfect way to wrap up. Thank you so much, Ruben. Thank you to everyone that's been behind the scenes, our panel of experts. Of course, Ruben's also an expert, and he's had his smiling face with me on screen. So we've had awesome help tonight, and of course, a fantastic audience sending in so many questions, well thought out, that I know have helped many people that are also joining us on this event. Before we do leave you, I want to remind you about our campus tours. We are offering campus tours 7 days a week, and we can drop that link for you into the chat box. Go ahead and click on that link, hop over to the site, and get yourself and your family registered for a campus tour. We do offer lots of time options and dates, so go ahead and take a look there and get yourself registered. Most importantly, of course, we've answered so many questions tonight. Most importantly, November 30th, 11:59 p.m. Pacific time. Make sure you mark your calendar and you get this application submitted by that deadline. Of course, you don't have to wait. What would be worse than getting right there down to the last few minutes? And what if your internet crashed or something happened, or you just got distracted, your laptop battery died? Who knows what could happen? So give yourself a break. We know that there's a holiday break happening this week, in fact, for many of you. So make sure that you give yourself some grace time and you try, finish that up in the next couple of days or the weekend. But you do technically have until November 30th, 11:59 p.m. Pacific time. Tonight, we've been talking about activities and awards, scholarships, and programs. We have so many more events coming up. A couple will be tomorrow night, actually. We have the last minute app chat. We have another one of those happening next week. And also next week, we will be doing an Ask Me Anything, just like tonight. However, the topic will be review and submit, because we are getting so close to November 30th. Once again, thank you to everyone who's joined us, pro staff, chatters behind the scenes, all the fast fingers, and everyone listening tonight. We've had so much fun with you getting back to all of your questions. We hope to see you tomorrow night and also in the events next week. Good luck on that application, and we will see you soon. Thanks, everyone.